Welcome to another Cardano update. Like always, make sure to check out our YouTube memberships and our Patreon if you want access to all of our charts and if you want access to our daily Discord updates. And Cardano right now is going up. However, I told you yesterday this is most likely a fake out, and well, after that the price actually did drop from 65 cents all the way down to about 61.6 cents. But I don't think that's the low. I think we're still gonna get some kind of ABC structure, and I think right now we're just in the B wave. Now, of course, this could actually turn out to be wrong if we actually get above the first wave high right here. Of course, that could turn into some kind of overshooting B wave, and then we could also go down after that. But, you know, the chances of that happening are going to decrease if we actually get above 66.9 cents and we break the first wave high. But until then, this could always be an ABC, and I think it's gonna be an ABC. And well, I mean, that's all about Cardano. The support zone is between 58.5 cents and 56.7 cents. Of course, we have the 0.382 extension as well, but we already got here, so I think the C wave will most likely, bottom in this region right here. And well, I need to talk about what Bitcoin is doing and what the stock market is doing, because right now the stock market is dropping, however Bitcoin is not. And people, I don't really want to be bearish right now, because I know people are not really that bearish anymore because Bitcoin is going up. However, please do not forget that the last time the S&P dropped this much, it took Bitcoin about 1 day to also drop with it. And well, right now I already told you, but Bitcoin has not dropped even though the stock market has dropped. So I think it's actually very likely that Bitcoin also gets a drop very soon. Now, probably today or tomorrow. If it doesn't happen, then maybe Bitcoin is not following the stock market anymore. I highly doubt that. So I think it's still gonna happen, and when it does, that will also be the perfect time to actually get rejected by the bull market support band and by the 200-day moving average. And if we do, Bitcoin could actually drop, let's say, to about $82,000 again, and during that time Ethereum could drop as well and get another low right here and get to the oversold territory on the weekly, stay there until the end of the week, close a wick there, and then we could finally move on and we could finally get some kind of top on Bitcoin dominance. Until that happens, I don't think the low is in. Now, people are already turning bullish, and I think I actually saw some comments yesterday saying that the low is already in, and I'm just waiting for another low so I could buy lower. And while that is in a way the case, I mean, it's not really that reason and that reason only. I still want the Ethereum chart to go lower because it's not oversold on the weekly, so that's why I have a buy order at about $1,420. It's because I know that at some point it will most likely go lower. Now, am I gonna be wrong about that? Well, maybe, but then again, maybe not. And if I'm wrong, I have no problem buying Ethereum at like $1,800 when it starts going up again, or $2,000. Honestly, I plan on selling this when it gets above the above the previous all-time highs right here. So I don't really care when I buy, I just care that I will make some profit at some point. And if I can, maximize my profit and buy lower, then of course I'm gonna do that. But if I miss out on this, which by the way is probably not likely because I still think we'll get to the oversold territory, but if I actually miss out on this, then it is what it is. And I mean, in the long term, even if I buy like right here, if it gets to all-time highs, I'm not really gonna care. So yeah, it's not really relevant for me, but I would like to, buy lower just because it's nice to buy lower. And well, actually I want to talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin right now, what it's doing on the weekly chart is also important. I talked about this yesterday. This is another reason why I think we will get rejected very soon. We got to the moving average on the weekly RSI, and usually Bitcoin gets rejected by this. I mean, here, we got rejected a bunch of times when we tried, going up in the past. We got rejected here, and then we dropped and formed another low, and then we got rejected here, and this time we did not form another low. However, we did get some kind of drop, and what here, we were also above the bull market support band when we got the drop. So I think we're gonna get some type of drop. Now, I don't know if we will get another low. I think another low is very unlikely right now. However, we could get rejected by the moving average, get a correction, and then Ethereum during that time could actually get to $1,400 or $1,300, and Bitcoin dominance could get to 66%, and then we could move on and we could finally get that big move to the downside on this chart. but until then, I don't think the market is ready. I don't think the market is ready to, go up right now, because Ethereum is not oversold and because Bitcoin dominance, in my opinion, has not topped. I think we will get to the 0.786 resistance level right here, and that's at 66.19%, so it's very likely that we do that. And speaking of that, I also want to talk about the Ethereum Bitcoin chart. I don't usually talk about this chart, however, if you look at what we're doing here, we are at about 0.017 right now, and it looks like we are about to test these lows right here, the, I think, 2019 lows, and we could actually find a bottom right here, meaning that if we do that, Bitcoin dominance during that time will probably get to 66%, so everything is just lined up perfectly. I think Ethereum Bitcoin will most likely bottom right here and then get some type of bounce. And I mean, before we do that, Bitcoin dominance will most likely get to 66%, and Ethereum will find some kind of low, and then we could finally move on and maybe get to, near all-time highs on this chart again by the end of, well, actually I don't know by the end of what, because here, for example, in 2019, I mean, it took like 3 years to top, so is Bitcoin about to underperform against Ethereum in the next 3 years or so? I don't know, it's likely, I have no idea. All I know is that at some point this will bottom and we will get some kind of crazy move to the upside. Speaking of that, we are currently oversold on the weekly chart right here. We have not been oversold like this like ever in the history of this chart, so this is actually very, very bullish. And I mean, here, for example, when we were, well, almost as oversold as we are right now, as you can see, after that we did get a huge move to the upside, so I think something like this is coming very, very soon. You just have to wait for it. Now, I also want to talk about the monthly chart. We are also oversold on the monthly, extremely oversold, so please do not think that, charts go down or up forever. At some point this will get a bounce. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and I think it's gonna happen soon. And well, I know this is not an Ethereum Bitcoin video or something like that, it's actually a Cardano video. However, whatever Ethereum and Bitcoin do, I mean, Cardano will most likely follow as well, and Cardano cannot really go up until we actually get a huge Bitcoin dominance move to the downside. So I mean, here, for example, in November, when Cardano went up like 300%, that's when Bitcoin dominance dropped like 7%. It dropped, I believe, from 61% all the way down to about 54% or so, and during that time Ethereum also went up. Obviously, I think it went up like 80% or so, and then of course we dropped after that. But you have to keep in mind, Ethereum went up 80% and Bitcoin dominance dropped about 7%. Now imagine what happens in the next couple of months when Bitcoin dominance finally gets some type of top right here at, let's say, 66%, and then we get a huge move to the downside, which will most likely test the trend line right here, meaning that Bitcoin dominance will most likely get somewhere between 41% and 42% or something. And imagine what will happen when we drop from 66% all the way down to like 42%. That's a 24% drop. And please do not forget, here in November, this was only a 7% drop, and Cardano already went up like 300% during that time. So this is why I believe that Cardano can easily get to all-time highs by the end of the year, and maybe even like $5 to $8. I mean, this is just, the exact same thing as the previous cycle, but in this cycle we're just doing it a bit later. So I don't really understand the complaints right now. It's the exact same thing. You just need to be a little bit patient because, in this cycle we are a bit slower. However, I still believe that Bitcoin will get to about $140,000 by the end of May. And I know I said at the beginning of the video that we'll most likely get some type of drop, but don't expect that drop to take too long, and honestly, don't expect it to take longer than a week. I mean, we could actually bottom on the Ethereum chart this week, and maybe we could finally move on. It would actually be the perfect time to do that, so hopefully something like that happens. Now, I also want to say that on the Bitcoin chart, we are very close to the moving average of the monthly RSI, and I think if we get rejected by this is going to be a sign that we are in a bear market. However, if we get above it, then it's going to be a sign that Bitcoin will most likely still top at about $250,000 by the end of the year. I know that sounds insane, but this is Bitcoin we are talking about, and honestly, $250,000 by the end of the year would still be pretty disappointing when you compare this cycle to the other cycles. So, I mean, even on the RSI right now, we are not even overbought on the monthly, and Bitcoin is at like $90,000. So I think it's very possible for Bitcoin to hit hit all-time highs again and even get above $200,000 by the end of the year. Now, I know that sounds crazy right now, but I mean, I was making videos about Bitcoin and about Cardano when we were doing this right here, when Bitcoin went down to like $49,000. I did tell you I think at this point that Bitcoin will still get above $100,000 by the end of 2024. And what do you know, it got above $100,000. Now, of course, I had another prediction that said that maybe Bitcoin has a chance to get to $140,000. That did not happen by the end of 2024. It still has not happened. And you know, some of my predictions are going to be wrong, but when you look at my main predictions, I mean, so far they have been spot on in my opinion. Bitcoin did get to $100,000 by the end of 2024. And I think it's still possible to get above $200,000 and maybe to above, let's say, $255,000 by the end of this year, or actually by the end of January of 2026 if we actually do what we did in 2018 right here, which is also possible, but I'm not gonna count on that. So Cardano is still gonna, you know, sleep until Bitcoin wakes up, but once Bitcoin wakes up and once Ethereum finds a bottom, I hope you are ready, because this is gonna be insane in my opinion. And I mean, people are not prepared for this. Obviously, people were not prepared for the altcoin season back here when Cardano was at like 8 cents or 2 cents or something like that. They were not thinking that, you know, Cardano will actually get above $3. But what you know, it happened, and it only happened after Bitcoin dominance topped and after we got some huge move to the downside on that chart. So until that happens, we could just go sideways. Now I have to talk about the monthly chart as well. On the Cardano chart, as you can see, we are still above the moving average right here on the RSI, so we need to close a month above it, because if we do not, and I told you this last month as well, if we do not, the pattern will no longer repeat itself. It will no longer be like this pattern right here. Here, after we formed the second one to set up, we stayed above the moving average. So right now what we need to do is do the exact same thing in this cycle, because if we close a month below it, it could be very, very bearish. I don't think it's gonna happen, and honestly, to get below it right now, we will need some kind of, you know, major drop. Of course, not that major, because I mean, the RSI is very close to the moving average. However, we are gonna have to drop like 50 cents and stay there if we actually want to close below it. So I don't think it's gonna happen. But I mean, who knows? So yeah, we're still waiting for Ethereum to find a bottom. I know I said that over like 5 times, but that's all you need to know. And until that happens, I mean, you can say all you want. You can, you know, FUD all of the altcoins and just say that Bitcoin is in a bear market if you want. I don't care what you say, honestly, but the data shows us that we're still very early, but it's still possible for Bitcoin to drop lower, and by the way, not lower than 75k, but probably like in the 80s, lower 80s again, just for Ethereum to find a bottom. And please do not forget, the stock market is going down right now, so I think Bitcoin will most likely follow. So that's all you need to know. I said everything like 5 times in this video just so, you know, it gets in your head. And I hope it did, and I hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to check out our YouTube memberships and our Patreon if you want access to all of our charts, and if you want access to our daily Discord updates. Like, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.